China threatens Japan with nuclear destruction. An account linked to the Chinese military posted a video showing nuclear missiles raining down on Japan, complete with rising mushroom clouds, and a message promising to, quote, bury this demon beneath the Pacific, end quote. Not subtle. We'll look at what triggered this threat and how Japan is responding. We're starting things off with a development that we've been following closely here on the President's Daily Brief, and that would be the escalation between China and Japan, and it's now taken a far more explosive turn. What began as heated rhetoric from Beijing is now crossing into territory that edges, closer to actual conflict than we've seen in quite some time. Over the weekend, a video began circulating on X from a Chinese military-linked account. It's not parody or satire. It's a piece of propaganda crafted with a specific message in mind. The clip shows ballistic missiles arcing through the sky toward the Japanese islands, and then, as they fall, the familiar shape of rising mushroom clouds. City after city in the video message from China swallowed in nuclear fire. The video came with a message, as if the visuals weren't enough. It read, quote, Japan is reviving militarism. The Chinese PLA will personally bury this demon beneath the Pacific forever to prevent World War II tragedy from repeating, for world peace, for the 35 million Chinese killed and wounded by Japanese invasion. At any cost, let the mushroom cloud bloom. End quote. In case the meaning wasn't clear, and I'm not sure how it couldn't be clear, it's an explicit nuclear threat against a U.S. treaty ally. And it comes weeks after Japan's new Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, used unusually blunt language about Beijing's behavior in the region. Her comments sparked an immediate backlash from Chinese state media. But this new Chinese video is, something else entirely. It invokes Japan's invasion in World War II, of course, still an open wound in Chinese society. It frames modern Japan as a resurgent imperial threat, and it presents a nuclear annihilation as an act of justice and historical redemption. It's not an isolated rhetorical flare-up. The account that posted the video is linked to Chinese military circles, and the message matches broader propaganda themes we've seen from Beijing over the last year: aggressive, grievance-driven, and designed to shape public opinion at home. But pairing that language with nuclear imagery raises the stakes considerably. Meanwhile, on Saturday, Japanese officials reported 2 alarming encounters near Okinawa. In both cases, Chinese fighter jets locked their fire control radar onto Japanese air self-defense force F-15s. Now, a radar lock, of course, is the step immediately before a missile launch. These encounters are rare, and they are universally treated as hostile acts. Japan's defense ministry called the incidents dangerous and destabilizing. Tokyo lodged an official protest. Well, that should do it. And the prime minister issued a public promise of a, quote, resolute response. She said the actions by the People's Liberation Army of China were completely unacceptable and risked triggering a serious incident. For their part, China, of course, claims that Japanese aircraft were the ones creating the danger. According to the Global Times, Chinese officials said that during routine training, Japanese military jets repeatedly harassed the PLA Navy's training operations, interfering with China's normal training activities and posing a severe threat to flight safety. Now, no matter who's at fault here, we now have 2 parallel escalations: nuclear threats in China's propaganda channels and aggressive real-world maneuvers in contested airspace. That combination should be deeply troubling for military planners in Tokyo and Washington. Encounters like this raise the risk of miscalculation, where a split-second decision or misread warning can turn a confrontation into a crisis. And this is happening around Okinawa, and that's a region that sits at the center of the U.S.-Japan security architecture. It's home to tens of thousands of American service members and major air and naval assets. Any miscalculation in that environment carries enormous risk, not just for Japan, but for U.S. forces stationed in the region. Of course, Beijing claims Japan is to blame for the rising tensions. Chinese state outlets accuse Tokyo of seeking confrontation and abandoning their post-war pacifist posture. But Japan's view is obviously starkly different. Their new prime minister has argued that Beijing has become more aggressive, not less, and that Japan must be prepared to defend itself as China expands its military footprint throughout the Western Pacific. So, none of this, of course, guarantees a crisis, but it does narrow the space between a warning and a mistake. And with Japan's new leadership still finding its footing, the timing could not be more sensitive. All right, coming up next, a leading Venezuelan opposition figure dies in the regime's most notorious prison. And a deadly car bomb at a police station in Michoacán, Mexico, leaves 5 dead as cartel violence intensifies. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here with a tip on improving your personal finances as the new year approaches. Here's the thing. You don't need to overhaul your life just to start investing. And there's an easy way to do it. You could just automate it. With Stash, S-T-A-S-H, just like it sounds, with Stash, your New Year money goals can quietly run in the background while you focus on everything else in your life. Look, Stash isn't just another investing app. It's a registered investment advisor that combines automated investing with expert personalized guidance, so you don't have to worry about figuring it out on your own. And at just $3 per month, that gets you access to world-class financial advice and personalized guidance, so you can start investing in your future today. Don't let your money sit around. Put it to work with Stash. Go to get.stash.com/PDB to see how you can receive $25 towards your first stock purchase and also to view important disclosures. That's get.stash.com/PDB. Get.stash.com/PDB. This is a paid non-client endorsement, not representative of all clients and not a guarantee. These investment advisory services are offered by Stash Investments, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk. Offer is subject to terms and conditions. Welcome back to the PDB. A former Venezuelan governor and longtime opposition figure died inside the Maduro regime's most notorious prison. And the government's account isn't landing with anyone who follows politics in Caracas. Alfredo Diaz's death has kicked up a wave of suspicion and demands for an independent investigation. Human rights advocates quickly confirmed what many feared. Diaz, once the popular Nueva Esparta state governor, died Saturday inside Helicoide prison, which is the headquarters of SABIN, the regime's intelligence service, synonymous with torture and political retribution. Maduro's regime claimed that Diaz suffered, quote, symptoms compatible with a myocardial infarction, end quote. Now, as you might imagine, people are skeptical of the government's claim. Under the United Nations Minnesota Protocol, which is the global standard for investigating potentially unlawful deaths, Diaz's case should automatically trigger a full independent review. Human rights groups say that's not just a procedural box to check, but a necessity in a system where political prisoners routinely vanish into isolation cells with no due process, no medical attention, and no way to call for help. According to United Press International, Diaz was granted just one visit during his wrongful detention, and that would be from his daughter. According to the founder and vice president of the Venezuelan human rights organization, Foro Penal, this is exactly the kind of case that the Minnesota Protocol was designed to examine. But, as you could imagine, it's unlikely that the Maduro regime will allow such an investigation. Diaz's path to prison and his eventual death there began on the 24th of November, 2024, when SABIN officers forcibly removed him off a bus. The regime officers accused him of, quote, incitement to hatred, financing of terrorism, and criminal association. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado said Diaz is now the 7th political prisoner to die in custody since July of last year and the 14th since 2014, calling the trend, quote, an alarming and painful chain of deaths tied to the Maduro regime. Machado argues that the circumstances point unmistakably to state responsibility, highlighting the mix of denial of medical care, inhumane conditions, torture, and cruel treatment inside the intelligence service facility. In a statement, she wrote, quote, this cannot be treated as an ordinary death. It's a crime to which the regime bears full responsibility, end quote. On Sunday, the U.S. State Department made its views known. The Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs said, quote, the death of Venezuelan political prisoner Alfredo Diaz, who was arbitrarily detained in Maduro's torture center, is yet another reminder of the vile nature of the criminal Maduro regime, end quote. Okay, shifting focus to Mexico. The relentless cartel violence that has plagued Michoacán state for more than a decade surfaced again when a car bomb outside a police station killed at least 5 people, including 3 police officers. Mexican authorities say the blast hit just before noon local time on Saturday, right outside the police headquarters in the coastal city of Coahuila. Now, 3 of the 5 killed again in the blast were police officers. The community police commander described a scene so violent that human remains were scattered across several city blocks. For those unfamiliar, Michoacán has lived under cartel terror for years, but the groups operating there now have turned the state into one of Mexico's most violent areas. Cartels operating in the state include the Jalisco New Generation, the United Cartels, and the New Michoacán Family, all designated by the Trump administration as foreign terrorist organizations. It's a crowded battlefield, and each cartel, of course, wants the same prize, the drug routes and the extortion rackets that have become the economic engine driving the region's violence. Now, that competition has only intensified in recent years, pushing criminal groups to adopt increasingly aggressive tactics. Cartels now rely on explosives dropped from drones, bombs propped along roadsides, or IEDs. But it's worth pointing out that using a car bomb is a far less common tactic. It's a detail that has drawn scrutiny from investigators and raised questions about whether one of the cartels is testing a new playbook. The bombing also lands at a volatile political moment. Just weeks ago, here on the PDB, we discussed the assassination of Mayor Carlos Manzo, a vocal anti-cartel crusader. His killing ignited 2 days of youth-led demonstrations, arson attacks on public buildings, and clashes with police that left more than 100 people injured. Manzo's death marked a turning point in Michoacán's spiral, underscoring the risks faced by anyone who challenges cartel authority. The police force, targeted in the weekend bombing, grew out of a civilian self-defense movement formed more than a decade ago to push back against cartel rule. Though later formalized by the state, many of these units have been infiltrated by the very criminal networks that they were created to resist, leaving officers caught between public expectations and cartel retaliation. Okay, in today's back of the brief, the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, is warning that Chernobyl's protective dome is no longer doing its job after a drone attack earlier this year. I'll have those details when we come back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Let me take a moment of your time, if I could, to tell you about an easy way to try foods from some of the best chefs and restaurants in the U.S. Now, have you ever heard of the company Goldbelly? Well, it's an amazing company, a great site that celebrates the best of America by shipping the country's most iconic foods from legendary restaurants straight to your door, anywhere in the USA. I've ordered everything from lobster rolls to ribs to desserts from Goldbelly, and trust me, it is all delicious. Everything arrives in short order and very well packaged. It could not be easier. So if you're looking for that perfect gift for everyone on your list, or you want to impress your friends and family with an unforgettable meal this holiday season, and who doesn't want to do that? Come on. Go to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code PDB. That's goldbelly.com, code PDB, for 20% off your first order. In today's back of the brief, a troubling development out of Ukraine. Warnings about radiation containment capabilities at the infamous Chernobyl nuclear facility. According to the UN's nuclear watchdog, the massive steel shield built to contain the radioactive remains of reactor number 4, well, that shield is no longer fully doing its job. Inspectors now say damage from a drone strike earlier this year has weakened the structure enough that it can no longer guarantee the confinement of radioactive material. Here is what we know. Back in February, during the height of fighting in northern Ukraine, a drone slammed into the outer shell of the containment structure. The impact caused a fire and punctured 2 layers of cladding, both the outer skin and an inner protective layer. At the time, the damage, sounded serious, but the full extent of that was not clear. Now, after a detailed on-site inspection, the International Atomic Energy Agency says the strike compromised the integrity of the structure. The internal supports and monitoring systems are still working, and radiation levels outside the facility remain normal for now. But the shield's core purpose keeping what is inside from getting outside can no longer be guaranteed. This shield, known as the New Safe Confinement, was completed back in 2019. It was one of the largest and most complex engineering projects ever attempted. Essentially, a giant steel arch slid into place over the destroyed reactor. And it was expensive, as you might imagine, about $1.7 billion US. The expectation was that it would last a century or more, long enough for engineers to dismantle the reactor safely. But that expectation, well, it didn't account for Putin's invasion. The fear now is not an immediate radiation leak, since, again, current levels outside the structure are stable. The concern is what happens if the damage spreads, whether from winter weather, additional drone strikes, or simple structural stress. There's also a political dimension. Ukraine sees the strike as yet another reckless escalation by Russia, and the IAEA is urging rapid repairs. But repairs of this scale, well, take money, coordination, and a stable security environment, none of which Ukraine currently has in abundance. And that, my friends, is the President's Daily Brief for Tuesday, the 9th of December. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And finally, if you're able, I hope you can take a moment out of your busy day to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find that on YouTube, of course, and just search for @President's Daily Brief. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back later today with the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, PDB listeners know that I am constantly traveling, right? So I guess I've become a bit of an expert on airports and luggage. I want to tell you about a great company out there designing and selling incredible luggage. It's called Noble Travel. That's N-O-B-L, Noble Travel. Now, let me give you a scenario. Just picture this. You're in line at airport security. Well, that sounds like fun, doesn't it? Anyway, you got a cup of coffee in your hands. It's sloshing around. Your phone is dying. It's almost out of juice. And you're digging for your laptop to put it in the x-ray bin while the folks in line behind you, well, they get increasingly annoyed. Now, standard luggage, I think you know this, it's just a box on wheels, right? And think about how often rollerboards and suitcases have broken. Wheels fall off, zippers break, you get the picture. Enter the Noble All-in-One Carry-On. It's got a flip-out cup holder to keep your drink secure. How smart is that? There's a built-in charger, which means your phone never loses juice. The front laptop pocket is easy access for TSA, and it's got 360-degree wheels that glide like a dream. Plus, listen to this, no zippers. No zippers at all. It uses secure latches that shut with ease and are great for security. It looks sharp, and it is built like it'll survive a war zone. Noble's the #1 rated luggage on Trustpilot, by the way, with a lifetime warranty and, listen to this, a 100-day return policy. Right now, they're running their biggest sale ever, up to 58% off site-wide. That's 58%. Hit nobletravel.com. That's N-O-B-L, nobletravel.com before they sell out. And when you check out, they'll ask you how you heard about Noble. Do me a favor. Tell them the PDB sent you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.